Well, shit, I done lost the glove. I found it. What's happening, Captain? What's new, kangaroos? It's your dandy, Candy, and welcome to the second installment of What the Fuck Was I Thinking? Where we're going to go over some of the paintings and sculptures and things that we made over the years and explain the reasoning behind them, the meaning, what we were thinking of at the time when we were making them, and just kind of share the process, the mental, you know what I'm saying? We're just going to share what they's about. This one's going to be done a little differently. As you may notice, we got a little neon poster boards behind us that we're going to use as our jury-rigged green screen. Because in the last video, even though I liked how it came out, I think it turned out okay. I think there could have been more emphasis on showing the artwork and not just standing in front of it. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to have a green screen here. Hopefully it doesn't cut half of me out of there, although I'm sure some of y'all appreciate that. And we're going to show some extra footage of just the paintings as well that we're going to be talking about today. Now, I don't know if we're just going to do 6 or if we're going to do more than 6. This one we're going to do a lot with several pieces that are in the same theme. And starting that off, we're going to be talking about 4 paintings in particular that we've done that are around one theme, which is the theme of drag. Now, you may or may not have noticed, but I'm a bit of a drag queen here. Now, I'm not somebody that usually goes to bars and clubs and things of that nature, mainly because I don't do too well in environments with large crowds and lots of noises. It's just not my bag. I'm more of a quiet type person. So usually I just do it for my videos. It's a way of me being able to take off the mask that I have to wear on a daily basis, whether that's the few times that I'm lucky enough to have a job and have to go to work, around people that I don't know, or just family members who don't really get it. It's a way for me to express who I am on the inside rather than what people only see on the surface. So it's one of those things that I really enjoy doing. And these pieces are a representation of that. We did 2 small ones as well as this really large one that you usually see behind us when we're doing the Drinking Good videos, which we're not doing anymore, as well as one of my personal inspirations, Divine. Now, not much to say about the 2 small ones. They're just kind of surrealistic, kind of funky tribal style that I like to do. It's very much inspired by Keith Haring, who's another one of my favorite artists from the 80s. The big one that you usually see behind us with the Drinking Good videos, that one was pretty fun. It's actually a canvas painting we did, then ripped the canvas in half, put a board behind it that we glued over with glitter, and then hot glued down some like little, I'm looking at it while I'm talking. We hot glued down some little crystal bits, plastic crystal bits onto the top of it, as well as some disco tiles, because we wanted to do a piece that expressed how fabulous it is on the inside as well as on the outside. That's why we have it set up that way, where you can kind of see the frame of the canvas as well as the artwork on the outside. It's expressing the beauty from within on the outside, if that makes sense. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. Who cares? Now, the other one that we wanted to talk about on there is the one that we did about Divine, obviously, because Divine is one of our big inspirations. There's just something about the character Divine that we did an entire video about Divine a while ago. They're one of my biggest inspirations. And the reason why is because when they first started out, they wanted to just be glamorous and pretty and beautiful, and kind of emulated the look and style of Elizabeth Taylor, because that was one of his biggest inspirations was Elizabeth Taylor. But it wasn't until John Waters encouraged them to open that character up and change the entire look of them to rather than hide behind trying to look like someone else, over exaggerating the makeup, overdoing the hairline, that they really blossomed into this larger than life personality. And the thing I love the most about Divine is it doesn't matter what other people think about Divine. They did this entire song called I'm So Beautiful that's literally about that, where it doesn't matter if other people think that they aren't attractive or not. They feel beautiful. They view themselves as beautiful. And that's what's so inspiring about the character Divine. So that's why we did a piece about it. In fact, the piece that we did is inspired by the album cover for their single, I'm So Beautiful. It's not the greatest of likenesses to Divine. I mean, that happens sometimes, but I do enjoy how it turned out. And that's what matters the most, is I think it's beautiful. So That's going to be those pieces right there. That's the drag pieces right there. Moving on to our next one. Now, these next three pieces we're going to do together because they're all about something I really enjoy and I'm always obsessed about, being a kid of the 80s and a teenager of the 90s. These are all pop cultural things. The first one that we're going to be talking about with this is called Ack Ack Ack, and it is based off of the movie as well as the card series Mars Attacks. Now, the reason that we're doing all three of these that we're going to be talking about is because they all share one thing in common, which are these things I call hyper ribbons. Hyper ribbons are an artistic method for me to express four-dimensional planes in a two-dimensional format. The reason that we call them hyper ribbons is because they're inspired by the comic author and chaos magician Grant Morrison's concept of hyper time. Now, in this one in particular, you've got a Martian pointing off in victory with his laser blaster hanging out, holding up his laser blaster and pointing out in victory with these green flames coming out behind him. And these hyper ribbons are just flowing out. And inside the hyper ribbons are a combination of both scenes from the card series as well as the red and green skeletons from the movie series. Because I first learned about Mars Attacks from the movie. I think a lot of people did. In fact, most people probably didn't even know there was a card series, but there was one based in the 60s. And the 60s card series is not as comical as the movie was. And there's a lot of differences between both the movie and the card series. In particular, one of the big things that's a difference between the two of them is Martians used a lot of giant insects in the card series to wreak a lot of havoc. And they had a lot more tools at their disposal. The ending to the card series is also different from the movie, where in the movie they just had some really loud yodeling music. In the card series, the US government essentially retrofitted Martian technology, flew to Mars, and then nuked the planet. There was a follow-up series in Spirit in the 80s to Mars Attacks called Dinosaurs Attack. That was going to be the original movie that Tim Burton wanted to make, but because Jurassic Park came out at the time, he decided to do Mars Attacks instead. But it's just one of those franchises I really enjoyed. I love me some goofy sci-fi, stuff like that, especially with that weird future retro 60s aesthetic to it, which was very popular in the 90s as well. On to the next one. Now, the second one of this trilogy of hyper ribbon pieces that we did is called Tromatello. And this is a mashup between Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid growing up, as well as late night B horror movies, or B horror movie sci-fi movies, in particular Troma films, and in particular The Toxic Avenger. Now, the reason that we did a mashup of both The Toxic Avenger and the Ninja Turtles is because both of these characters share a commonality, which is that they're both superheroes that were created through toxic waste exposure. This is kind of a play on the 60s, making every superhero get their powers through radiation, whether that's the Incredible Hulk, the Amazing Spider-Man, or the Fantastic Four, for a couple of examples where they got their powers through radiation. In the 80s, there was this really big push about toxic waste and unhealthy conditions that was kind of ignored by big corporations. And so you had a lot of characters getting their powers through toxic sludge rather than bombarded with radiation. Same concept, different take, a little updated. Now, in this piece, we have Tromatello standing in front of a bunch of hyper ribbons that are just signs of pollution. You got nuclear weapons, you got toxic waste barrels, you got soda pop can rings. These were really big things that people always complained about a lot in the 80s and 90s, especially in the 90s when you started seeing the government kind of doing a half-assed job of trying to clean things up, even though they were still deep into Big Oil's pockets. So that's what that piece is. It's kind of a combination of both the late-night horror movies as well as one of my personal favorite franchises as a kid, which was the Ninja Turtles. And funny enough, funny story, my niece is also a huge fan of the Ninja Turtles. And that's one of the few things that we bond over quite often whenever we talk is Ninja Turtles. In fact, I have painted a plethora of paintings for my niece in particular that are just Ninja Turtle themed because I know how much she loves them and I love to paint them for her. So that's that piece right there, Tromatello. And I just want to say this, both the Ack 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 piece we just talked about and that Tromatello piece that we're talking about right now, there's prints available for those over on our Etsy shop. So if you get a chance to check those out at the end of the video, go on and get them. On to the next one. The third one of this trinity of pop culture pieces is it's just called Robo. I couldn't come up with any fancier name for it than Robo. It's, of course, inspired by the movie RoboCop by Paul Verhoeven. RoboCop is one of those movies that I really probably shouldn't have watched as a kid. There's a lot of movies I probably shouldn't have watched as a kid. In fact, one of my other favorite ones from the '80s is Return of the Living Dead, and we did a piece about Tarman as well. We'll get into that. Well, we're talking about it right now. We did a piece about Tarman as well, but this one here in particular, RoboCop, or Robo, is it's one of those movies that's interesting. The older I get, the more I kind of get the message that was going on in the background that kind of got lost in translation, with it just being an over the top action film, which a lot of people just take it as. Paul Verhoeven's movies do that a lot, quite often. Even Showgirls kind of had its own hidden message behind it. But with RoboCop, there was this whole message about corporatism and how bad it was how bad it can get. If you notice it in the trilogy of movies, OCP eventually turns the entire city of Detroit into Delta City. And one of the big things, one of the first steps that they did was in mechanizing the law enforcement. And RoboCop is a prototype of that. He's an officer, Murphy, that was shot in the line of duty, killed, dead, that OCP basically took the body of and made into a machine that didn't need to sleep, barely needed to recharge, and he really didn't even need to pay, because let's be honest, who the fuck's going to put a robot on payroll? It's kind of a message about corporatism and how pretty much the wealthy will just use you until you fall apart, and if they can, they'll automate you. Because he's not supposed to be epic and badass. You're not supposed to emulate wanting to be RoboCop. He's kind of a tragic character. But that gets lost in translation with all the crazy stuff that happens in the film. And it's a very good action film. I do love the first one. The second one was really good as well. The third one was kind of cartoony, which is kind of weird that they actually made not one but several cartoon series of RoboCop. They even made a cartoon series of the Toxic Avenger. Which, why are they making cartoons of these? This is also one of those franchises where they started making action figures of rated R movies. I mean, I know Rambo was out before that, but RoboCop was so popular with kids for some reason, even though it's definitely not a movie for kids, but they made action figures and cartoon shows of it. The hyper ribbons behind this, let's go into the scene that it's based on. Now, the scene that you see in the piece is inspired by one particular part in the RoboCop where he is shooting a guy in the groin after he tried to grape some lady. You see the guy getting shot in the background, and all the hyper ribbons are flowing out of that explosion. Because I'm a bit of a maximalist, I can't have a single piece of the canvas not have something on it. I've also got Ed 209 in the background, but in them hyper ribbons are scenes from the movie. You got the "I'll buy that for $1" guy. You got the CEO getting, or not CEO. You got the corporate guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It's been a minute. Getting thrown out the window with them long ass McFarlane arms. And it's just a really fun piece that I just wanted to do because I was inspired at the time to make something fun like that. And every once in a while, it's okay to make something just fun and goofy. So that's that piece right there. It's not very well deep, meaningful. It's just I really like RoboCop. I really enjoy Toxic Avenger, Ninja Turtles, Mars Attacks. I love me some pop culture. So that's what those pieces are. It's just pop culture pieces. There's no prints of that one because I'm broke as shit. I can't really afford prints right now. And I had a hard time getting prints of those other two pieces made because of the size of them. But all of these pieces are available if you're interested in buying one. Let me know. And I think we're going to wrap it up with a few more pieces. And let's go ahead and get on to those. Now, these ones here are a little political. I know there's some people probably groaning and rolling their eyes. Oh, why are you doing political pieces? I know, I get it. We did a bunch of depressing ones last episode. We were going to throw a couple of political ones on this one. The first piece of this is called Crying Ogre Onions. And this one was inspired by that very brief window of time when The Onion almost bought InfoWars out from underneath Alex Jones after Alex Jones had to sell InfoWars for lying about Sandy Hook. Enough said. Alex Jones is one of those provocateurs that honestly, I get why people watch him. I understand most people view him as a joke. He's a stereotypical wingnut conspiracy theorist. And his notoriety to fame is how over the top he gets whenever it comes to anything. And he loves to cry a lot and whine a lot like a big old baby. And he got really upset when The Onion was about to buy InfoWars, even though apparently the person that held the auction decided that they wanted to see if they could get a better bid or something. I don't know what the technicality was behind it, but there was a very brief window in time there where the Onion almost owned InfoWars, and that's what that's inspired by. And the reason we went with an ogre for him, the reason we made him look like Shrek, is because, well, ogres have layers, onions have layers. A little ogre at the top, but what are you going to do? Now, these last two pieces that we're going to talk about here are about everyone's least favorite South African discount Temu Count Chocula, Elon Musk. The first piece is inspired by that one very brief moment at the inauguration after Trump won his second term in office, where he threw up what a lot of his ass kissing bootlicking sycophants called a Roman salute. Which, by the way, there never was a Roman salute. And given the current state of events, you can probably guess exactly what the fuck he was throwing up there. Now, in this piece, you'll see the American flag is upside down, which is a universal symbol for distress. Things are not okay. And if you look out your window, yeah, things are not okay. And instead of him just doing his little stupid salute thing, I ain't even going to try it. He's holding up a puppet of, I'm just going to call him Piggy. He's holding up a puppet of Piggy with a bunch of auto-stamped fucking papers just falling out of his hands with his little minions around him. Those are all the members of Doge that were basically just siphoning out all kinds of taxpayer funds, gutting all kinds of projects and programs that were actually benefiting this country as well as other countries, and putting it into their little pocketbooks, getting their little information and shit like that. And if you notice, yes, they are in fact drawn to look like minions. They're wearing the little overalls and the yellow things. So that's exactly what they is. They're minions. So that's that piece. And the last one that we're going to do on this is called, I can't remember exactly. It says it on the hat. And again, it's all the way over there. I'm all the way over here. I want to say it's called Drug-Fueled Zombie with Dead Eyes. The reason that it's called that is because that was a comment that he made in particular about talking about homeless people. And that really pissed me off. The reason that pissed me off is because my big sister, who we didn't have the greatest of relationships, but I always looked up to her, even though she hated my guts. When she died, she was homeless. We did everything we could to try to help her, try to get her off the street. But it was a very difficult situation, and it was one of the hottest summers we've had in years. And she ended up dying July 3rd, the day before the 4th of July, back in 23. And just that callous, disgusting comment that he made just infuriated me, especially with, if you know Elon, he's very well known for being a ketamine addict, which is what those little blue dots in the background are representing, as ketamine pills. I don't know if that's what ketamine actually looks like. I don't do hard drugs. The hardest drug I've ever done is acid once when I was 16. But it just really pissed me off because of the disconnect of him being a massive drug user and alcoholic himself, as well as most of those cabinet members and big CEOs. I mean, how many times do you see these CEOs sitting up there at a TED Talk or at a little thing where they get to talk about how great they are and they're coked out of their fucking minds? But to have that kind of apathetic, disgusting comment about people on the streets, calling them drug-fueled zombies with dead eyes, it's so dehumanizing and disgusting, especially when you're a billionaire that could actually afford to put those people in houses instead of them being on the streets. But they just want to shove them into camps, or they just want to shove them into prison cells, or they just want to just ignore them completely. And that's what that piece is about. It really pissed me off when I heard them say that. And it immediately reminded me of my sister who passed away on the streets. So that's what that piece is about. There aren't the greatest of likenesses because frankly, I can't even stand looking at the guy's fucking face. And he's got so much plastic surgery. It's kind of hard to tell where his definitions are in general. But it's just that disgusting comment just really fueled me up there to paint something like that, especially after he went on bragging about how he won the election for Trump, which that brings up a lot of questions, and I've done it. But that's what that piece is about. It's about that cold, disgusting, dehumanizing rhetoric whenever it comes to the country's least fortunate people. And it's not just him that echoes that. There's a lot of folks that I've known living out here that have that same mentality. And it's honestly disgusting because just be honest with you, a lot of us are one bad day away from being in that situation. So you really should be more kind to folks on the streets instead of treating them like some kind of other or some kind of non-human, because they're humans. They had a bad day. They ended up on there. Whether that had anything to do with drugs or not is irrelevant, especially when it's coming from somebody who is geeked out of their mind 24/7. So it's just one of those things where it's like you need to be a little more kind to folk. And instead of being such a disgusting person that thinks of others beneath them like that, because nobody's beneath you. You know what I'm saying? And everybody's an inch away from being homeless, really. Unless you're one of his bunker buddies or one of these super ridiculously rich folks. A lot of folks are one day away from that. One bad paycheck, one medical expense, or whether it's your medical expense or someone else's. I mean, hell, I can't tell you how many times I've been sweating about it myself. I mean, my mom, she's in the front room. She can't get up. She doesn't really even try. And I have to be here all the time. And I only make a little bit off of my one night job that I have. It ain't much to go by, especially with all these expenses that I have that constantly pile up. So I'm always worried about ending up on the street myself. I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there as well that think that, and I'm worried about that too. So that's what that piece is about. It's about kind of a fuck you to somebody that would have such a disgusting comment, such a nonchalant, disgusting comment about people who are on the street while you're sitting there living rich, high as a kite. The hypocrisy of it all. Ooh, we got a little bit heated there for a second. We're gonna go ahead and finish this video up. If you like, this one was kind of all over the place with explaining the pieces, but I think this is going to turn out pretty decent. Again, green screen right here. Hopefully my makeup is blue enough to where it's not going to get caught up in the chroma key. But just to go ahead and finish this up. Now, I wanted to go ahead and point out that those last three pieces, we also have prints for available over on our Etsy shop. There's the little URL. You could type that in yourself. For some reason, YouTube won't let me put URLs in anymore. I don't know what that's about. If you feel like helping out the channel or helping us out in particular, every penny counts. Go ahead and hit up our Venmo link right down yonder. We're a little dry in the throat. Need some lubrication. That being said, this has been Candy Dandy. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good one. And I'm sure my neighbors upstairs are glad I'm done talking.